So not too long ago, I had done a review of another fragrance by this brand new French niche brand. It's called Sora Dora. The fragrance I reviewed is called Gladiator. Well, in today's video, we're going to be taking a closer look at another fragrance from the brand. I'm hoping to cover as many as possible on my channel until I have them all covered. This one is called Vanuatu. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this sandalwood-based fragrance, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's video on Vanuatu by Sora Dora, and I tell you about this fragrance, the smell, the notes, the longevity, the performance, all that good stuff, I do want to start things off by mentioning that if you are a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Also, hit that bell icon so you can be notified whenever I do upload a future video to the channel. And then, of course, lastly, give it a thumbs up. This way, you let the YouTube algorithm know that you like this type of content, and it'll get delivered to you more often, as well as other viewers who are like you. So with this fragrance, we are looking at a creamy sandalwood fragrance. Now, the note of sandalwood in and of itself is rather creamy. It has an element of sweetness about it as well. It's a very accommodating note and one that I personally enjoy, but there's actually another ingredient in here that adds to the creaminess, and it's the note of fig milk, or rather I should say accord, because there's no such thing as real fig in perfumes. It's actually a fantasy note. That's why a lot of times when you see fig in a note breakdown, sometimes the fragrance will smell like coconut or something else that would kind of make up or constitute the fig note, but it's actually an accord and a blend of other notes that smell similar to it. In addition to that, you do have a spicy heart, you have black pepper, you have cardamom, but in the opening you have bergamot and rhubarb. Rhubarb can kind of give off a little bit of like a strawberry vibe. I do find this to be a really interesting fragrance, also very different from Gladiator, and also very original, as I can't seem to compare it to anything on the market. I am excited to give you my thoughts in terms of the smell. Let's start things off with the presentation. So in the opening of this fragrance, it is opening up very rich and creamy, and it has a very smooth texture about it, which is something that I personally enjoy, and I think it's something that a lot of people are going to enjoy. What I really like about this fragrance is that while it does have that mild sweetness that would be attributed to either the sandalwood, the fig milk, or both, it doesn't ever go into gourmand territory. The sweetness is never too much to digest. There's a gentle amount of sweetness, nothing overpowering in any sense of the word. And what you're going to get in combination with that sweetness that's coming from the fig and the sandalwood, is you're also going to find this refreshment in the opening. Now, the bergamot that's in here, it's not overly citrusy, it's not overly zesty, and I feel like those base ingredients do distract you, and sometimes they can steal your attention away from some of the other notes that are more volatile in the opening, because there is something very rich and smooth and creamy about this fragrance, and it does make its presence known. In terms of that combination of spices in the heart, I mentioned there's black pepper, there's also cardamom. I am getting the cardamom in here. It's nothing that is overly spicy or anything like that, or overly green. I know sometimes cardamom can come off a little powdery, especially in the case of something like, La Nuit de l'Homme by Yves Saint Laurent. We all know what that can kind of smell like. You don't have that happening in here. So if you're not a fan of powder, there's good news in regards to this fragrance. So it does have this creamy sandalwood fruitiness about it, but you also have a really nice balance of the cardamom and also that refreshment in the opening. Now, the overall vibe that I get from this fragrance is kind of similar to Gris Charnel by BDK Parfum. So if you're familiar with that fragrance, I know that fragrance has a lot of other notes in it that are, not necessarily listed in the note breakdown of this fragrance, but that's a very loose comparison just to put you in the mindset of the type of DNA to expect from this fragrance. In the beginning of the review, I had mentioned that this is actually a unique fragrance, and I will stand by that. I do think that the previous fragrance from the collection that I've reviewed, Gladiator, does smell very similar to Creed Aventus, almost smells like an intense or extrait version of Creed Aventus. This fragrance, on the other hand, it doesn't really smell like anything else, but like I said, it does mimic somewhat Santal Complete by Fragrance de Bois and Gris Charnel by BDK Parfum. So that's to sort of put you in the mindset of kind of what to expect in terms of a similar family of scents. But ultimately, I do think that this fragrance does do its own thing. And I think there's much less of an emphasis on the cardamom, definitely more of an emphasis on that fig milk accord, which is very welcoming and very addictive as well. You do get a lot more of it in the dry down because it is a base note. So once you give this fragrance like 3 hours to settle down, the richness of that sandalwood base really is brought to the fore. But in the opening, you are going to get a little bit of that bergamot spicy combination. Like I said, not overly citrusy, not overly zesty, but the base is really the star of the show, if you will. So once you get 2-3 hours into the dry down, it really starts to take a turn for some really exciting, dynamic changes. So I'm excited for you to get your nose on it. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, well, I kind of made a few comparisons, but this one does still do its own thing. It was more to give you an idea or to put you in the mindset of the types of fragrances that one might compare this to, but it's still rather unique. Longevity is 8 hours, which is amazing. Projection is great for the first hour and a half of application. It did start to sit a little bit closer to the skin at that 5.5 to 6 hour mark, but the performance on this is certainly above average. Versatility, very good. Perfectly unisex. You can wear this one dressed up, dressed down, any season, any occasion. I personally find this to be one of the more versatile fragrances from the brand when we're taking a look at another one of their offerings, which is called Camel Oud. That fragrance is maybe a little bit more suited for the autumn and the winter. Gladiator as well as Vanuatu. Both of these fragrances are certainly geared for all seasons and all occasions, which is great. In terms of the presentation, I do like the presentation, the cloth that's on the inside, the little silk cloth and the box and the card, and just everything about it looks really nice. The insignia. My final verdict on this fragrance is if you're looking for a very rich and creamy sandalwood based fragrance, chances are you're really going to enjoy this one. It is high quality. The performance is there, and it's also one of the more versatile fragrances from the entire collection. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit that bell icon so you could be notified every time I do upload a future video to the channel. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if you learned something today. It would really mean a lot to me. Thanks again for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.